Okay, first of all, I know the history behind the WNBA. I know that both of those cities have had teams before and they got us where we're at, so I'm thankful for that.
Some WNBA players show up, perform their duties, and then leave. Then there's Sophie Cunningham, a woman who entered the most talked about women's basketball team, started throwing people to the ground right away, went viral overnight, and then sat down to reveal all the secrets she had been keeping to herself about what it's really like to play with the world's most divisive player. What she disclosed wasn't merely unexpected. It totally upended the narrative that the majority of people had previously come to believe. You must go back to January 31st, 2025, the day Sophie Cunningham's life transformed in a way she most likely never anticipated, in order to comprehend why any of this matters. She had been a grinder with the Phoenix Mercury for 6 seasons, gaining a reputation as a harsh, untrustworthy guard who was fearless and capable of shooting out lights. Then it was revealed that she had been traded to the Indiana Fever. Not any team, mind you. With more cameras, controversy, and national attention than any WNBA team in history, the Indiana Fever are home to Caitlin Clark, the most scrutinized athlete in women's sports. Additionally, the transaction itself was historic, a huge 10-team blockbuster deal that rocked the league. Cunningham was not introduced to her new world in a kind manner. After being dropped in the midst of a storm, everything about her true nature became clear. This is something that hardly nobody discusses. Cunningham had a difficult beginning in Indiana. Her debut was postponed until May 22 due to an ankle injury she sustained during the preseason. A week later, she sustained another ankle injury that kept her out of action for an additional 2 weeks. She was fighting her body and trying to establish her rhythm while playing for a new city, a new coach, a new system, and new teammates. She had difficulties during those initial weeks. There was a lack of chemistry. There was no momentum. The likelihood that this trade would succeed at all was seriously questioned. However, something clicked right before the All-Star break. When Cunningham was added to the starting lineup, she didn't simply rediscover her rhythm, she took off. She averaged 11 in 13 games as a starter, 2 points and a field goal percentage of more than 51%. During that time, she was possibly the most productive player on the team. The enforcer that the Fever had uncovered was only getting started. Nothing in the 2025 WNBA season elicited a more unvarnished response than what transpired on June 17. The Connecticut Sun were being hosted by the Fever, and the entire game had been violent. Sun guard J.C. Sheldon poked Caitlin Clark in the eye during the third quarter. It was the type of play that usually results in a free throw and a shrug. Sophie Cunningham, however, was not shrugging. After a quarter of an hour, she seized Sheldon and dragged her to the floor in front of the whole crowd. Ejected right away. The moment was all over the place. Overnight, social media collapsed. In a matter of hours, Cunningham amassed hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers. Her TikTok number increased from 300,000 to more than 1.2 million. When she eventually addressed it in the media, she quickly became well known outside of basketball. You see, she was straightforward. I will defend my teammates. I do that. She also acknowledged that the league had penalized her about $900. She also stated that she had no regrets at all. It was more than just a video that went viral. Sophie Cunningham's entire public persona was altered at that same moment. What Cunningham soon disclosed on her brand new podcast, Show Me Something, which she started with her childhood friend and reality TV star, West Wilson, made the consequences from that dispute much more intriguing. She didn't hesitate. She acknowledged something that had been the subject of months' worth of rumors. The discussions regarding how to deal with Caitlin Clark during her rookie season really took place in the locker room when she was still with the Phoenix Mercury the previous year. Many people had their suspicions confirmed by her, but no one wanted to say it aloud. According to Cunningham, players in the league were specifically targeting Clark in order to convey a message and demonstrate to her what the W truly stands for. She claimed to have a partial understanding of it. Rookies are handled that way. However, it had gone much too far with regard to Clark in particular. Cunningham remarked, "I'm like, what are people doing?" after witnessing it as a member of her squad. "It's simply too much. I've moved on. It's probably too much if I feel that way." Those statements struck a different chord coming from someone who had really been in those rooms. It wasn't a popular opinion. This was an admission. Fans couldn't get enough of Cunningham's constant revelations on the podcast. She confronted those who doubted Caitlin Clark's influence on the league in one episode. She didn't speak carefully. She didn't use hedging. If you don't think Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA, or if you think the league would be where it is right now without her, you're just flat out wrong, she remarked, and this is as close to her words as possible. She clarified that she wasn't disparaging other league players. Everyone was respected by her. However, she didn't understand the denial of Clark's contribution to the evolution of women's basketball, and she expressed it with such directness that it was hard to ignore. Hearing it firsthand from a seasoned insider held significant weight for a league that has been engaged in an ongoing, complex internal discussion regarding Clark's job and reception. And the response from the internet was precisely what you would anticipate. The video became viral once more. Then came the moment that completely changed the story's tone. Sophie Cunningham revealed a whole different side of herself away from the altercations, podcasts, and viral events. She volunteered to serve food to local families at the annual Aaron Nesmith charity dinner in November while fully microphoned and having her speech captured on tape. "This is what we're here for," she remarked, glancing around the crowded room. "We are available to you." This is the section that struck a different note. She didn't have a contract. Her one-year contract with the Fever was already over. She wasn't required to be there. She was not compensated. She simply arrived, rolled up her sleeves, and began serving. Fans of Fever went crazy. Just as quickly as the J.C. Sheldon fight, the video of that moment went viral. The team was urged to sign her for life by comment after comment. Those who had never seen a WNBA game began to pay attention. This was the other half of Sophie Cunningham, a farm girl from Columbia, Missouri, who attributes all of her identity to a hard-working and devout upbringing. She then began discussing Caitlin Clark's off-court activities. And nearly everyone was taken aback by what she said. Clark was perceived by many as being virtually untouchable. A well-groomed, calm celebrity athlete who moves effortlessly through life. Cunningham totally destroyed that perception. She was asked about her favorite Clark anecdote during her appearance on the Like a Farmer podcast. Her response was so candid that it seemed as though she was revealing a secret. "Clark is a normal human being, and she really just loves basketball," she remarked before referring to her as a big old dork. "You don't know what to expect when you first meet someone who has so much attention following them around," she remarked. "You get ready." Instead, she discovered someone who was genuine, modest, and utterly silly. She claimed to adore Clark's entire vibe and that she is the biggest geek you'll ever meet. That description applies to millions of individuals who only see Clark through press conferences, endorsement deals, and highlights. Seemed to be the most compassionate thing someone had ever spoken about her. The two of them's relationship off the court developed into its own narrative. Cunningham responded without hesitation when asked which of her teammates she would least trust to manage her social media accounts. Caitlin Clark. 1,000%, she stated. Because, as Cunningham put it so lovingly, Clark is a starter. That is to say, she would initiate drama. She would publish something and observe the mayhem. This was exactly in line with how these two communicate on social media. Their fan communities love their frequent light-hearted jabs, inside jokes, and mutual trolling. Joking that they were Indiana Fever mermaids on their way to a game, Cunningham tweeted a video of himself and teammate Lexi Hull in swimsuit in August as a recruiting pitch for bikini sponsors. However, Cunningham's podcast ultimately became aware of Clark as well. When a fan inquired about a Clark appearance, the Show Me Something account replied, "Sown." This essentially proved it's happening by the standards of these two's public communication. Beneath all of this enjoyment, however, was a season that went horribly wrong. By August, the Fever had become an almost unbelievable injury disaster. Due to a quad strain, bone bruise, and groin injury, Caitlin Clark only participated in 13 games throughout the season. Cunningham and Clark were among the 5 players that were ultimately declared out for the season. The crew was so short-staffed at one time that they were eligible for an emergency hardship exception. Cunningham was playing until August 17th, when guard Bria Hartley of the Connecticut Sun tripped into her leg and tore her MCL, necessitating surgery. The season is over. Before the playoffs even began, the woman who had battled her way into a starting position averaged over 11 points per game as a starter, and grown to be one of the team's most adored presences, was gone. She watched from the sidelines as the eventual champion Las Vegas Aces were forced to play 5 games in the semifinals against a devastated Fever squad. That team's tenacity was astounding. However, Cunningham must have found it painful to watch everything happen without her. The postseason events were nearly as fascinating as the season itself. Cunningham became an unrestricted free agent in a league whose future was completely undetermined when her one-year, $100,000 contract expired. The Players Association and the WNBA have reached a deadlock in their CBA negotiations. Furthermore, no one knew when free agency would formally commence or what the wage structure will be for the upcoming season. She joined with Project B, a brand new international 5-on-5 touring league that promised her more than $2 million a year, which at the time was about 8 times the top WNBA wage. Additionally, she started to expand her media presence in a way that demonstrated her ability to think beyond basketball. The sponsorship agreements, the podcast, and the social media brand. She was making a full-fledged public career out of the notoriety she had gained during a single season in Indiana. She continued to express her desire to return to the Fever throughout it all. She desired to play with Clark once more. Her future in Indianapolis was finally within grasp when the CBA was finally finalized in the middle of March 2026 and free agency began. The figures by the end of 2025 revealed a narrative that no one could have predicted at the beginning of the year. Sophie Cunningham was ranked 7th among the most searched athletes in the U.S. in Google's annual year-end search rankings, which declined. There was no mention of Caitlin Clark, who had occupied the same position in 2024. In a sense, Cunningham had replaced her. When someone brought this up on her podcast, she responded in the same straightforward, non-performative manner that she does to nearly everything. She claimed that she was unsure of how to feel about it. That being the only female in the top 10 was kind of cool. However, she also made an effort to explain Clark's absence right away, pointing out that he had only participated in 13 games this season. She wasn't bragging. She wasn't focusing on herself. Her teammate was on her mind. More than anything she said over the year, that response revealed Sophie Cunningham's true nature off camera. And this is the current state of affairs. If the new CBA holds together, the 2026 WNBA season is scheduled to begin on May 8th. Caitlin Clark is in excellent health. Following an outstanding showing at the FIBA Women's World Cup qualification competition, where she won MVP and led Team USA in every significant statistical category. The Fever are getting ready for what should be their healthiest and most formidable roster in team history. And the woman who arrived in Indianapolis as a trade piece, Sophie Cunningham, became an enforcer, went viral, became a fan favorite, suffered an injury, created a media empire while recovering, and never stopped speaking her truth. She is currently awaiting word on whether she will be allowed to return to the team where everything changed for her. The organization is being continuously pressured by fans to bring her back. According to reports, Clark has told the front desk how she feels about the issue. Toronto and Portland are the 2 new teams joining the league as a result of the expansion draft. As the new year approaches, the Fever's roster choices have emerged as one of the most anticipated stories in all of women's basketball. One thing is certain, regardless of what comes next. Expectations were high when Sophie Cunningham entered the room. Broke all of them and, in some way, emerged stronger than before. She turned up to serve meals to strangers without a contract or responsibility, revealed the truth when no one asked for it, and stood up for her teammate when no one else would. It's not a brand. That's an individual. And that's precisely why people are unable to stop watching. Some WNBA players show up, perform their duties, and then leave. Then there's Sophie Cunningham, a woman who entered the most talked about women's basketball team, started throwing people to the ground right away, went viral overnight, and then sat down to reveal all the secrets she had been keeping to herself about what it's really like to play with the world's most divisive player. Not only was what she said shocking, but it also totally upended the narrative that the majority of people had previously come to believe. You must go back to January 31st, 2025, the day Sophie Cunningham's life transformed in a way she most likely never anticipated, in order to comprehend why any of this matters. She had been a grinder with the Phoenix Mercury for 6 seasons. Gaining a reputation as a harsh, untrustworthy guard who was fearless and capable of shooting out lights. Then it was revealed that she had been traded to the Indiana Fever. Not any team, mind you. With more cameras, controversy, and national attention than any WNBA team in history. The Indiana Fever are home to Caitlin Clark, the most scrutinized athlete in women's sports. And the actual transaction, a huge 10-team megadeal that rocked the league, was unprecedented. Cunningham was not introduced to her new world in a kind manner. After being dropped in the midst of a storm, everything about her true nature became clear. This is something that hardly nobody discusses. Cunningham had a difficult start at Indiana. She had to postpone her debut until May 22nd after tweaking her ankle during the preseason. A week later, she sustained another ankle injury that kept her out of action for an additional 2 weeks. She was fighting her body and trying to establish her rhythm while playing for a new city, a new coach, a new system, and new teammates. She had difficulties during those initial weeks.